3, 2, 1. Are we live? Test. Okay, great. All right, so welcome to Trekking with Trevor for this live stream. We will be doing some photo editing on a few bears that I photographed up in Alaska. So feel free to chat, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And the plan for this stream is to edit maybe about 3 images, 2 or 3 images, go about 30 minutes long on this stream. And let's get started. Okay. So here is the first bear that I will be editing. And one of the things that I love about this image is I love the facial expression on this bear. And I love how her lower lip is sticking out. It makes this bear look really sassy. So I love the emotion that we have going on here. I like her body posture. And then also the fact that she is looking to one side kind of leaves that suspense, as in, what is she looking at? So it brings that sense of curiosity. So this is my first image that I'm going to edit. First, is my stuff actually working? So one challenging part about these lives is like, is everything going good, working well? Okay, I think it's good. So let's start editing. So I work for a company called Backcountry Journeys where I lead a lot of photography workshops. And one of the things I do as a guide for the company is I lead bear expeditions in Alaska, which is super awesome. Just being up there in remote Alaska, surrounded by a bunch of bears, is like a dream come true. Bears are so awesome. So many great bear photo opportunities up there. So I'm going to increase the contrast a little bit. My exposure looks pretty good. As you can see, my histogram is right in the middle, which is basically ideal. I may increase my whites a little bit so that way I could get this little bottom piece here as close to the edge as possible. See how that looks? Yeah, just a little bit. Cool. So when it comes to photo editing, there is a lot of trial and error. Drop the highlights a little bit. As you can see, that does bring a little detail out in the bear and some of these brighter spots, especially right here on the muzzle. Shadows, bring those up a little bit. Just once again, brings out more of the detail here on the bear's legs and chest. I don't want to bring it up too much because I do like that contrast that we have there between the lights and the shadows going on. I really love how we have this light coming in on the bear's right shoulder, and then the left side, it's basically all in shadow. So you know what position the sun is shining, and we're going to play around with that later. When you edit, you definitely want to make sure that the lens correction is on, so that way it straightens or flattens your image if there's any distortion to it. In Lightroom, it's automatic for me, and it's really good at knowing what lens I use. So for this image, I shot with a Canon R5 and a 600 millimeter prime at f4. So if I hit info, you can see up on the top where I shot it at 1/1250 a second. At f4, my ISO was at 1000. All right, so let's do some masking. I love the masking features. They're really awesome because it really helps isolate different parts of the image, which makes editing so much easier versus before where you had to take a brush and try to brush in the fine details on your subject and try to get it perfect and right in the lines. It's like a very advanced coloring book where you have to try to stay in the lines. But these days, so much easier. So first thing I want to do is, let's do a radial gradient. Never mind. Let's do select subject. There we go. Look how nicely that worked. Got the nice hair, fine details of the hair all the way around. Like if I try to brush that in, I would miss so much trying to get those tiny hairs. You do see where it overlaps a little bit outside of the lines and it doesn't get all the individual hairs, but for what it's worth, it is really good to have. Really nice. Okay, so I'm going to brighten my bear up a little bit. Drop my highlights. There we go. Shadows. I'm going to actually drop my shadows back down on this one. Like I said earlier, I really like the contrast between the light and the shadows here. Sharpness. I'll add a little bit of clarity. A lot of times when people are editing wildlife photos, one thing I do notice is people like to crank that clarity all the way up. So starting at 0 and then watch as I crank it all the way up. Boom. See how like prickly that bear is? Bears are supposed to be soft and cuddly looking, minus the sharp teeth and sharp claws. So when you take the clarity and you crank it all the way up, it turns them into a porcupine. And we don't want that. So just a little bit to add a little bit extra definition and the hairs on the fur on the bear. All right. Now I'm going to take a radial gradient and I'm going to come in like this. Take the feather, 0. So there you can see my radial gradient. Have the middle piece right there on the corner. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to dramatize the light shining down on the bear. So I'm going to brighten that side a little bit more. Maybe add a little warmth to it, just a tad bit. So one of the big things about photo editing is you basically want to do a bunch of small little edits everywhere. You don't want to really just crank anything way up or way down, especially when you're masking. It's just a little bit adjustment here and there, and it's like putting Legos together. You just put one little Lego on top of another little Lego, and then after a while, boom, you got an entire house made of Legos. So that's what we basically do here. We just do minor adjustments with the masking until we have the image that we like. All right. Now I'm going to do a linear gradient coming up right here. I'm going to add another linear gradient coming to the right. And we're going to drop that down just kidding. I don't want to drop that down, but we will cool it down so you can see where the impact is coming from, or the parts of the image that it affects. So I want more of the blue over here on the bear on the right side. So I'm going to bring that gradient in more. Then drop it down just a little bit. So this is the before and this is the after. So you can see how we dramatized that light coming in on the bear's right side. It's also nice that the bear is looking in the direction of the light as well. All right. Now, linear gradient down from the top, and I'm going to subtract subject. So I'm just going to make the background a little bit darker overall to help the bear stand out more. And then I'm going to do another one coming up from the top. Maybe not as wide though. And I just want this little piece right here basically. Make sure I'm not getting any of the bear's feet in that, so I'm going to subtract subject. And then drop the exposure. And I'm also going to drop the clarity because I want to soften that a little bit more. More focus on the bear right here. Then yeah, I'm gonna drop my vibrancy down. See how that looks. Yeah, just a little bit. I do like the coloration of this. Come down to my tone curve. I'm going to take this piece right here and I'm going to move the shadows up a little bit to add more of a softer feel to it. So it does take away some of the contrast, as you notice, the higher you go. But I just want to do it a little bit to have more kind of like a softer effect to the image. Zoom in. Oh, look at the piece of grass there on its lip. Yeah, look at the detail in this fur right here. This is really nice. Take a brush, shrink my brush. Now I'm going to focus on the eyes. And go and just paint around here. Actually, paint all the way around here. And then I'm going to also brush up this side too. Shrink my brush. Because I want to add a little more clarity to the eyes and brighten them as well to make them pop more. So just a little brighter, not too much, because if you go too bright, then you'll have these very scary, ghosty, demon-like eyes, and we don't want that. So just a little bit, boop, there we go. And then I'm going to increase the clarity, sharpen those eyes a little bit more, boom. Play with the highlights. I'm going to increase my highlights, and as you can see, that brightens the brighter areas of the eyes. So I'm going to increase those. And I'm going to take the shadows and drop them down, and it darkens the darker areas of the eyes to help them pop more. So before, after, is what it looks like so far. Boom, boom. Going to take this linear back here. Actually want to turn it sideways. Come down like this. Then drop it down. Add a little blue to it. And then I'm going to crop it because there's too much space here on the right side, which to me is empty space. The bear's not in that space. The bear's not looking in that direction. The bear's looking to the left. So I want the more focus to be on these two columns right here. So I'm going to actually do an 8x10 of this image. Bring it over. Now my bear is more center. Crop it down a little bit. Boom. So, before, after, before, after. Gorgeous little grumpy bear. The fur right here is still a little too bright for my liking though. So I'm going to take a brush and paint this in. Basically try to get rid of this overexposed area. Let's see, drop the exposure down. Let's try highlights. Whites. Ugh, not the whites. Alright, so drop the highlights down a little bit there. Yeah, so it helps take care of that overexposure there a little bit. And then what if, come on, there we go. And what if I drop my exposure overall, go more of a darker, earlier morning shot? Yeah, I think I like it a little bit darker. There we go. Before, after, before, after. Looking at it full screen, so using a Mac, I pressed F to get it to full screen. And now I'm just looking to see if there's anything in particular that stands out that I want to adjust or fix. And as of right now, I think I may keep it as that. That doesn't mean that I'm done editing this photo though. When it comes to photo editing, you spend some time editing them and then you kind of just push them away and ignore them for a little bit. And then you come back later to see if you want to make any adjustments. Sometimes you may even want to just like start over. Cool. And now I'm going to move over here to more of a landscape focused image. And this is the one I'm going to go for. It was between these two, and I think I'm going to go for this one. And the reason is I do like this mountain right here in the background that's right in the center with two bears, one on each side, standing up, performing the same behavior. This one, to me, provides more balance than what this one does. Maybe if I crop this in. Versus this one. Like this one, I keep it as it is. Yep, I'm gonna go with this one. All right, so let's do the contrast. My Instagram, as you can tell, is all over the place. Click on this triangle, you can see the parts that are underexposed, black. So that's the bear here, and then overexpose. Little bit up in the top left corner of the sky, so not that bad, which is good. I have this histogram all the way across, which means I have a bunch of detail right here to work with on editing this shot. So I'm going to drop my highlights, bring up my shadows, so I can brighten the bears in the foreground. Whites and blacks I want to leave as they are because my histogram's all the way to the edges on both sides, so I'm not going to adjust them. Leave the exposure, add clarity throughout the image, a little bit of texture. Let's see, drop my vibrancy down a little bit. Tone curve slightly up. Boom. Now let's get to masking. I'm going to start with the sky. So select sky. Yeah, look how nice that is. It does give my mountains a little bit. I'm not too worried about that. That way I have like a little nice balance, a little nice overlay to them. So I'm going to play around with that. If it starts to look too bad, have a negative impact on those mountains in the background, then I will erase that. But for now, I'm going to keep it as it is. Increase my dehaze. I bring my dehaze all the way up. You can see that I got this dust spot right here in the middle. So that's something I'll have to clean up later. And if you also notice, dehaze all the way up, changes the color. So you don't want to add too much dehaze. So just enough to add a little bit more contrast to the sky. I'll darken a little bit, add more contrast. Add a little blue to it. There we go. Great. Now I'm going to take it even further. Do a linear. And get more of the top part of the sky. Just darken that a little bit. That way more of the brighter parts of the image will be more focused in the center where the bears are. And I actually, oops. Didn't want to do that. There we go. I'm actually going, oh, I just deleted my sky. Command Z, there we go, brought it back. All right, linear gradient. I'm going to do the same thing from the bottom. There we go. Darkens the bottom part of this pool where the vegetation is. Radial gradient. I want this all the way across. So I'm going to have my feather in the middle. Put this right here. Then brighten the centerpiece a little bit. There we go. So that way it brings more of the attention to the bears and the vegetation right here. Let's see. Maybe if I bring up my shadows some. Drop my highlights. Yeah, drop my highlights. More contrast there. And if you also notice my histogram, before it was just like all these jagged peaks all the way across. Now it is a little bit more centered. It is looking a little bit cleaner as well. Let's zoom in. So these bears are out here feeding on sedge grass. Except that one. That one's kind of napping. But there have been times where I'll be out there walking in this field and you'll have more than 20 bears all the way around you just eating out on the grass like cows, and you're just walking through a bunch of these bears, which is super epic. Most people consider bears as like these vicious, man-eating animals, but majority of a grizzly bear's diet is actually vegetation. But they are related to grizzly bears, but they're also known as the coastal brown bears. So there is argument on whether the coastal brown bear is the same species or the same as the grizzly bear. They are the same species, but it is believed they are subspecies. So this is along the Alaska coast. And their behavior is a little bit different than like a grizzly bear you'll find inland. Because of the amount of food out there, they are more tolerant of each other's presence versus a grizzly bear that is more inland, that doesn't have access to as much food. They tend to be more territorial. So if you compare an Alaska brown bear to like the grizzly bears of Yellowstone, you're more likely to get attacked by a grizzly bear down in Yellowstone than by one of these bears up in Alaska. But with that being said, they are still bears. They're very powerful, and you don't want to get complacent around them. Definitely have your head on a swivel when you're out there photographing and filming these animals. All right, I'm going to go back to my radial gradient. I'm going to add a little warmth to that center part. It draws more attention here. So in photography, the warms pop out at the viewer, while the cooler colors, they tend to fall back more. So if you keep that in mind when you're editing your images, the parts that you want to pop out more, if you add a little warmth to them, while the background you kind of cool down a little bit, it does help your subject pop a lot more. I'm going to add vibrancy to this image. However, I'm going to go down to my color mixer, saturation, hitting this bullseye right here, and that will allow me to select specific colors. Because if I try to just choose one here, it's just going to limit itself to like that color. So if I took green and just slide it, it's just going to do green. However, if I use this bullseye and stuck it over here in the green vegetation and I slide down, notice how it's choosing both the yellow and the greens that are in that position. So I am going to drop the saturation of the green a little bit. And then I'm going to come over here to the blues. Bring that up a little bit, add a little more blue to it. Oop. And I don't like this bright area up here in the top left corner. That tends to be a little distracting. So I'm going to actually crop that out. There we go. And move my mountain back in the center. There. Let's go back to linear gradient. Darken that a little bit more. Let's add some vignette down here in effects, just a little bit. Darkens the image, the edges, so that way it draws the viewer more inward. I do like the rim lighting on this one back here. That'd been a nice shot if I zoomed in and got closer on that one. There, the spot, the evil spot. Let's get rid of you. Okay, so I'm on the healing tool. And I'm gonna zoop, just paint around, and boom. Get out of here. Ta-da! Problem solved. Okay. So, this is the before, and then here is the after. Before, after. Full screen, examining. Maybe add more contrast to that. This side too does look like there's more light coming in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do what I did on the previous image and dramatize that area some. Boom. Feather all the way up to 100. Do an oval. There we go. Pressing my O so the red is gone. Zoom back in. Brighten that area a little bit. Add warm to that side. Maybe stretch it across a little bit. And let's make it narrow. There we go. And then let's do a linear coming up. And another linear coming down. Zooming in. And drop the exposure some. Or maybe not. Add a little cooler to it. Too much of a feather on this linear gradient. Boom. Bring it down. Basically working on aligning it with this mountain right here. Then this side, let's do the same. I'm going to shrink that feather and then bring it up. Then start over on my temperature. Drop it down just a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to do another linear gradient. Just kidding. Delete that. I'm going to actually, which brush? I want to brush in this area up here, because I want more of the light to be over on this side. So I'm just going to brush this in. Doo-dee-doo-dee-doo. Drop the, yuck. Drop it down just a little bit. Add more cool to that particular area there. It tends to be a little more balanced that way. Before, after, before, after. All right. Cool. So those are my 2 images that I've edited on this live stream. So as a recap, here's the first grizzly bear that I did, the before, the after, full screen, boom, look at that gorgeous little girl. Gorgeous, sassy little girl. And then there's this one, before, after, full screen, boom. All right, 2 images edited from my bear expedition. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time here on Trekking with Trevor.